very good job of like finding where I come that. Hello, everyone. So, for those of you who do not know me, and do I know Spanish and English? Just Spanish, or just English? Both. So I'm going to switch a little back and forth. So, muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Gustavo Rivera, senador estatal del distrito número 33 en el Bronx, en el cual ustedes pertenecen en este momento. So my name is Gustavo Rivera, State Senator for the 33rd District, which is now, you will be, if you are living in this building or in this neighborhood, now you are part of it. So it is not a district that I have represented. Well, it's not, I represent, the district that I used to represent did not include this part of the Bronx, but it does now, and it will for the next 10 years. Yo no he representado esta parte del Bronx en años anteriores, he sido senador por más de una década, pero ahora va a incluir esta parte del Bronx por los próximos 10 años. So, I am the chair of the Health Committee in the Senate. And that's the first time that a Bronxite or a person of color has had that position before. I've been the chair for about, well, this is my 5th year, I guess, because we've been the majority for that time. Yo soy el presidente del Comité del Senado de Salud, y soy la primera persona de minoría o persona del Bronx que es presidente, que tiene esa posición. Y he estado en esa posición por los últimos 5 años durante el tiempo que hemos estado la mayoría en el Senado estatal. I guess just a couple of quick things about me, and then I'll just, I would rather have a conversation than just me going like this, just me talking to you. Un par de cosas más y después cualquier cosa que usted quiera hacer pregunta. So I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I was born and raised there. I got to New York in 1998. Got to the Bronx in 2000. And became a senator in 2010. I originally came to do a PhD in political science, but you'll notice I do not introduce myself as a doctor or PhD, so that tells you how far I got. Not very, but I did start teaching college in 1999, did that for a little bit, started working in politics, got elected to the Senate in 2010. Yo soy originalmente de Puerto Rico, llegué a Nueva York en el 98, me mudé al Bronx en el 2000, empecé a dar clases universitarias en el 99 y estaba trabajando como académico, pero también trabajé en varias campañas políticas. Fui electo a el Senado en el 2010, aunque vine a hacer un doctorado en ciencia política, todavía no lo tengo, lo que mi padre me recuerda todo el tiempo. My dad always reminded me that I came here for a PhD, but hey, what happened with the PhD? You get there for the PhD, look like I was. So eventually, okay, so no he terminado todavía, pero and although I never really intended to run for office back in 2010, I kind of needed to, because the guy that was here, his name was Pedro Espada.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that guy? Yeah. After I defeated him, he then served 6 years in federal prison for stealing public money. That's how kind of the kind of guy that he was. Yo fui electo en 2010 y aunque nunca tuve la intención de postularme para candidato al Senado, me postulé para candidato por la persona que estaba sirviendo en ese momento, un señor que se llama Pedro Espada. Después de que yo lo derroté en el 2010, estuvo en la cárcel federal por 6 años por robarse dinero de una clínica de Medicaid en el sur del Bronx. O sea que, tipo, no muy bueno. Anyway, with that, I will just say, I am very much looking forward to getting to know all you folks. My community affairs representative, that is, his name is Brent Schneider, this gentleman right here. Give him a hand. Definitivamente espero tener la oportunidad no solamente de conocerlo a ustedes, pero de servirles. A este señor que lo presenté se llama Brent Schneider, que es mi representante de asuntos comunitarios. In my office, and I'm sure that we'll talk about my office right now is located at 187th in the Concourse, in the 5th floor of the Poe building. And the reason for that is that it is the office that I've had for over a decade. It is still central because my district comes all the way up to Riverdale, but goes all the way down to Belmont, and it goes as far east as as Allerton, Pelham Parkway. Yeah, and I have all of that, and also Van Ness and Morris Park. So I have all of those different neighborhoods, and so this is kind of an office that's kind of central, and it still has trains and buses that go right by it, so it's the reason why we have there. Mi oficina se encuentra en la 187 Gran Concourse. en el quinto piso del Paul Building. Es una oficina que está más o menos central porque el distrito que represento no solamente sube hasta Riverdale, pero también incluye Belmont, pero entonces cruza el otro lado del parque. Tengo Allerton, Pera Parkway, Van Ness, Morris Park, o sea que es bastante amplio y es una oficina que es bastante central. So with that, I will say again, thank you for having me, and I'll answer any questions you have.
So here's how we're going to handle questions. I've gotten some questions in advance. We have people online who are going to want to ask questions, preferably in the chat, hopefully. And we're going to get questions from the people in the audience. I'm going to play Phil Donahue, Oprah Winfrey, and I'll come up with a thing that are word combination together. I'm going to start with a question.
I would rather do this. Move this.
Sure, but we also want to just make sure that people.
Oh, I know.
Cool.
Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a chair over. I'm going to sit.
Okay.
Yeah, fine, but so you see it? If you still see me, y'all can see me. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the first question is, what is the Fair Pay for Home Care Act? Are you supporting it? And tell us a little bit about that.
The Fair Pay for Home Care Act, I am certainly supportive. It is the effort to have home care workers be paid fairly. We managed to, which is kind of included in the title of the thing. We managed to pass some of it last year, but we didn't get it all done. We included some of it in the budget. And we're in the process of fighting the budget right now, so hopefully we'll get to include some of it in this time. But again, I am supportive. The main sponsor is one of my colleagues, Rachel May, who's a state senator from upstate New York, who's been rapidly fighting for this, and we hope that we can get more in the budget. We're in the process of negotiating that. Fair Pay for Home Care es un proyecto legislativo que está para pagar, para que la gente que hace trabajo de home care se le pague de forma fairly. Adecuada, justamente, muchas gracias. Switching back, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen every now and then. There's going to be a word or two. I'm going to be like, oh, well, because even though I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so my first language is Spanish, I've been speaking English so long that I kind of like switch it back and forth. Sometimes I forget. So sí, justo, que se le pague justo, adecuadamente. Y el año pasado pudimos lograr, en el presupuesto, se pudo lograr que se incluyera algo de la propuesta legislativa. O sea que se le subió $3, pero tenemos que subirle más y vamos a ver qué podemos hacer.
Question from the audience? Okay, I gotta get that. Yeah.
Actually, I have 3 questions.
3. Well, sir.
But before I start, I would say thank you. Whoever sent me a card for my birthday. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Mark Barrett, I'm at 474 38th Street, and I met you 12 years ago. You asked a question on, I didn't ask the first, you answered my question. So, and you were my representative from 2010 to 2012 and through the line. But
Gotcha.
my first one concerns BOE. What is we thought about that? Because we told what can be done. Number 1, fair report. The second question is, a brother was asked last year regarding reparations. What's your opinion about that? And my third question is doing more details with that. You've asked a bill regarding gun work. A lot of people do historical reenactments, say they can't do the reenactments anymore. If you know, New York State has 2 major historical battlefields. You got Saratoga, turns out the Revolutionary War, and you have the Battle of Plattsburgh, 1814, where you beat Americans defeated the British. And they used to operate to use their guns at these things. They were told they couldn't use it. I want your opinion on these matters. Thank you.
Let's just do that one question at a time.
Yes, I can certainly repeat the question. I will tell you, sir, you are a fast talker. That's the first thing I'll say. If you're just going to it's like you want to get off. Gotcha. And also, you obviously pick ones that are not very controversial. So, the gentleman asked, and it was a very broad, open question about bail reform. That was the first one that you asked. Second one, the third one was about gun safety, and particularly you're talking about probably the SAFE Act.
Yes, that regarding using
Right.
guns on.
Right.
The third
And
one.
reparations.
And the second one is about reparations. So so let's go one by one. And this is, so I'm gonna have to switch back and forth to Spanish, it's gonna be a little different. Let me see what I can do here. Okay, son tres preguntas. La primera, and by the way, one of the things that I'm gonna do every now and then, particularly when I'm having like, there's a particular difficult thing that's requiring a lot of mental energy, it means that I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna close my eyes like this, but it doesn't mean I'm sleeping. It just means that I'm turning off my eyesight so I can focus on my mind, because it's gonna be like twisted back and forth, it's gonna be a little difficult. So. Again, this makes such a hot light, such a hot light. Okay. So tres preguntas que hizo. Una, because you can probably sit down, so it's fine. It's gonna take a while, so you shouldn't be standing. Son tres preguntas. Número uno tiene que ver con fianzas, tiene que ver con la ley de fianzas que se pasó hace poco. Segundo, le tengo que preguntar, aparentemente hay una ley que se pasó sobre lo que se llama reparaciones. Le voy a preguntar más sobre eso, porque quiero saber exactamente a cuál se refiere. Y tercera, sobre una propuesta legislativa que se llama Safe Act, que pasamos hace un par de años, para controlar la venta de algunos tipos de armas en el estado de Nueva York. So, first one, on bail. Bail is ultimately something that criminalizes poverty. Bail is supposed to be when you are accused of something. If you're arrested and accused of something, this is very unlike. You're arrested and accused of something. Bail is something that you are told that you have to give to the court so that you will come back to see the next court date. It is not meant to be a punishment. The system that we reformed was one that ultimately criminalized poverty, because regardless of what you're accused of, can I use the mic? Can I use the other mic? Can I use the hand mic? Because this is. Oh, is that what it was? Okay. Perfect. So if your name is Harvey Weinstein and you were accused of all sorts of horrendous things that he ultimately was convicted of being a sexual predator and a rapist, but he was a millionaire. So he got accused of it. The bail was set at $3 million. He went back home within an hour, and he was back sleeping in his social. Khalif Browder, who was a gentleman who used to live in my district, was a young man who was 16, was arrested for supposedly stealing a backpack, was put in jail. He said, I didn't steal anything. I said, well, you're accused of it, so if you want to go home, you have to pay bail. But he couldn't pay it. So he stayed in jail. For 3 years, he stayed in Rikers. 2 of those in solitary confinement. He eventually was let out because the charges were dropped because he hadn't stolen anything. And he committed suicide like a year after that. Those are the 2 systems. Bail is something that ultimately criminalizes poverty. So that's number 1. And I'm going to go to the next part, but I need to translate this part. La fianza, el sistema de fianza, se supone, la forma que funciona, supuestamente, es que si usted es arrestado, en la corte usted tiene que dar un dinero para asegurar que usted pueda volver a la corte. Pero al fin y al cabo es un sistema que criminaliza la pobreza. Porque yo el ejemplo que di es de un muchacho, un señor que se llamaba Harvey Weinstein, que fue acusado de cuantas cosas, inclusive fue encontrado culpable de ser un abusador sexual, etcétera, etcétera. Y este señor, como era millonario, fue acusado de todas estas cosas y estuvo menos de 1 hora en la corte y volvió para su casa. Pero otro muchacho que se llamaba Khalif Browder, que vivía en mi distrito en un momento dado, a los 16 años fue arrestado porque supuestamente se había robado un backpack. Lo pusieron en la cárcel, en Rikers, estuvo allí 3 años, 2 de ellos en solitario. Y después de 3 años en Rikers, le quitaron los cargos porque no se había robado nada, le quitaron los cargos. Y como 1 año después cometió suicidio, se mató, porque no podía vivir con el trauma que había experimentado. El sistema, al fin y al cabo, de fianza criminaliza la pobreza. No nos hace más seguros. That's what I want to come back to. Bail as a system does not make us safer. I care deeply about public safety. I want everyone to feel that they can walk from their home to the store, to see their families, to hang out in a park, and not have to worry about being attacked, robbed. I want to create a world in which that is a reality for everyone. And the problem is that right now, the conversation is driven by folks in the New York Post, and by a lot of other folks in the conservative right. They're making the argument that by changing the bail system, we have made things unsafe. And that's not the reality. Has there been an increase in crime in certain instances? Yes. Can that be tied back to bail? No. And you know who says that? The same prosecutors who argue that we should go back to the old system. 3 weeks ago, there was a hearing, that was a 9-hour hearing in Albany, where we asked people to come in to talk about the data that had just been released to see if there's a connection between bail and the increase in crime. And the prosecutors who were making the argument that we needed to go back to the old system were asked directly on the record. I can show you the video. Can you show us the data that demonstrates the connection between bail and the rise in crime? And he says that he couldn't do it. That it was just, what's the word that he used? It was just anecdotal. And that's a problem. I would rather be driven by data and information. Do I want everybody to be safe? Yes. But going back to an old bail system is not the way to do it. So, al fin y al cabo, los números no nos dicen que hay una conexión directa entre el cambiar o volver al sistema anterior de fianza. Como dije anteriormente, la fianza no está conectada directamente con la seguridad. El sistema de fianza nos hace más seguros. Y hace 3 semanas hubo una vista pública que duró como 9 horas en algo, en la cual se le preguntó directamente a un montón de personas que hablaron sobre la data, de que si existe esa conexión. Y esas mismas personas que estaban diciendo, los fiscales, estaban diciendo que ellos querían volver al sistema anterior, pero ese sistema, ellos no pudieron decirnos que había data directa que demostrara que había una conexión entre el sistema que se cambió y en que estuviéramos menos seguros. Esa conexión no existía y ni siquiera ellos lo pudieron decir. So, as you could say, you picked very, things that are easy to answer. So it takes a while to do it in Spanish and English. I certainly want to make sure that I get to other questions. I will answer the other 2 ones very quickly, because obviously you have some other ones. On the SAFE Act, I believe that the SAFE Act was necessary, and I'm supportive of it, because we need to make it harder for certain types of weapons to like assault weapons and such, certain types of paraphernalia for these weapons to be limited. I do not believe that goes against the Second Amendment, and folks on the right would disagree with me on that, but I do not. I'm still supportive of the SAFE Act. En la tercera pregunta que él hizo es sobre una propuesta legislativa que aprobamos un par de años que se llamaba SAFE Act, que eso fue inmediatamente después de uno de los muchos momentos violentos de que se utilizaron armas en Estados Unidos. Y esta ley nos limitó en el estado de Nueva York el que se pudieran conseguir armas en particulares, como rifles de asalto, y también otras cosas que lo harían más superautomáticos, etcétera. Y pues yo no creo que eso viola la segunda enmienda de la Constitución. Y creo que es necesario y lo apoyo. And as far as reparations, I'm not sure exactly the bill that you're talking about, but I think that the conversation about what role slavery has played in the U.S. and how we've not reckoned with how much it has to do with so many of the systems that still plague us to this day, that conversation needs to happen. And so I'm not sure about the particular bill.
New York State said 400,000 people were fighting to end slavery, and it ended slavery in 1827, and 40,000 did not come back. So it was already taken 7,000 Americans died.
Well, So it's, I would say, this is a longer conversation that we need to have, sir. But no, it's fine. It's like this, it's just, I want to make sure that we get to everybody, but I would say, I would have to think about the particular bill, because I'm not sure the bill that you're referring to. But again, I would think that the question is something that we need to engage in. Y rápidamente, la segunda cosa que está hablando es sobre un movimiento que se llama de reparaciones, que tiene que ver con lo que ocurrió en Estados Unidos en cuanto a la historia de Estados Unidos y la esclavitud, y el impacto que tiene la esclavitud en los sistemas que tenemos hasta el día de hoy. Y yo creo que es importante tener esa conversación, pero no es exactamente a la propuesta relativa a la cual se refiere. So that's the first guy. Okay.
What happened here?
Okay.
You're too close.
Too close. Okay.
Stay away.
Yeah.
So, have my.
There's another one that's,
Really? Okay. You don't want to ask me about puppies? Where's the therapy dog? Come on, puppy.
we need our therapy dog to answer our questions, I guess. Okay, the next
Let's go,
question.
Fufu. What's happening?
The next question is, can you give us an update on the Healthcare for All Act? Now that Assemblyman Gottfried has retired, who's been appointed health chair in the Assembly? And is that individual going to be the lead sponsor in the Assembly? So we haven't really talked about this bill.
Right.
We had Senator Biaggi here
Mhm.
way before the pandemic started, and she was talking about that, advocating for that. And we really haven't talked about it.
Gotcha. So that one is easier. So that one is called, the bill that you're referring to is called the New York Health Act. The New York Health Act is a bill that I sponsor to guarantee healthcare to every single New Yorker for free, regardless of their age, their wealth, their immigration status. Because I believe healthcare is a human right, and I believe that commodifying healthcare is an obscene act. The idea that it is true that in the US you can get access to the best healthcare in the world if you have the money. If you don't, and if you're a normal person, then you have to consistently deal with insurance companies that ultimately make decisions for you regarding your health. That's not the way the system should work. I want to kill insurance companies. I want to make sure they don't exist. And I'm working to make that happen. Es una propuesta legislativa que se llama New York Health Act o el Acta de Salud del Estado de Nueva York. Yo creo que la salud es un derecho humano y que tenemos que asegurarnos que todas las personas tengan acceso a cuidado de salud. Mi propuesta eliminaría la necesidad de tener compañías de seguro, porque al fin y al cabo las compañías de seguro, un seguro médico no le asegura a usted nada, solamente le asegura acceso a esa tarjeta de seguro médico, pero no le asegura cuidado médico. Y yo quiero asegurarle cuidado médico a todo el mundo. Es posible, se puede hacer, lo han hecho en muchos países a través del mundo. Yo creo que se tiene que hacer en Estados Unidos. It's been done across the world. And in so many, basically every modern democracy in the world has some sort of single payer system. And I want to create one here in the state of New York. The bill, thank you. The bill was sponsored by my colleague, Dick Gottfried. Dick Gottfried was I love this dude. He was my mentor. He was in the assembly for 52 years. And he retired last year at his own terms. He's a rare bird because there's people that have served in the Senate and the Assembly for 10 years and they're already just like not doing much. But this guy for 52 years was an effective member of the legislature. So I love that dude. He was the chair of the Health Committee for 35. And he's no longer the guy who's going to be there. The new chair of the Health Committee, her name is Amy Paulin. Amy Paulin is a state senator from Westchester. And she's been in the legislature for 22 years, but this is new for her. But we have a good working relationship. So I think that we're going to do well there. And she's going to be the sponsor that I know. Right. So mi compañero en la asamblea, que estuvo en la asamblea por 52 años como asambleísta y estuvo como presidente del Comité de Salud de la Asamblea por 35 años, se acaba de retirar. Y el que lo reemplazó una señorita que se llama Amy Pollard, que es de una asambleísta de Westchester. Ella ha estado en la asamblea por 22 años. Y ella, y ella va a ser la persona que va a auspiciar este proyecto de ley cuando sea reintroducido. I haven't reintroduced it yet. I will it's going to happen soon. It's but we have still to make some changes to it.
The second part to the question that we got in the chat, and that, you know, I'm happy with my Medicare. How is it going to affect my Medicare?
Well, you're happy with your Medicare, but you sometimes have to get Medicare Advantage to be able to cover certain things. So you have some limitations as far as where you can, as far as your drugs, etc. And long-term care is also an issue. All of these things will be included in your account. Basically, what we want to do is we want to simplify the system. We don't want to take away your Medicare. We want to actually take what you have on Medicare and then add a whole bunch of things on top of it.
Questions from the audience? My neighbor.
Oh, my neighbor.
Hi, neighbor.
My name is Robert Stein. You can call me Bob.
I will call you back.
Thank you. First, thank you, Senator, for being here
Yes, sir.
and for listening to our questions and having this interchange. I'm going to sort of hop on the healthcare issue because many people, including some people here, are very happy with their plans. I mean, I have traditional Medicare, and thankfully, because of my federal employment, I have a federal employee program. With the new single care law, take that away or supplement?
We would, first of all, do you have networks, limited networks?
No.
So you can go to ADA.
I
Yeah,
can go to any doctor.
that's the difference between, because I'm a Medicare also, that's the difference between getting a Medicare Advantage plan and then taking a supplemental plan for regular Medicare, but it's very expensive. So when I do that, that's much more expensive. A lot of Advantage plans, you don't really pay anything because they limit your network.
So the answer to your question is we want to supplement it. We don't want to take away anything from anyone except the limitations that an insurance product gives you. If you're not a Medicare and you're on a regular insurance product, there's going to be limitations on networks. There's going to be limitations on, there's going to be a formulary that's attached to what drugs you can actually do. There's going to be all sorts of things that insurance company is going to do to make sure you don't get care, because it is not in the best interest of any insurance company to make sure that you get care, because if they don't, then they make more money. And that's what I'm calling it as far as commodifying healthcare. I think it's an obscene proposition. So I would say, sir, that I want to supplement it and then some. I don't want to limit what you have access to. I want to broaden everybody else's access. And then the things that are not currently covered for you that are medically necessary, I want to cover them. Para la pregunta que hizo el compañero, en el caso de él, que probablemente es el caso de muchos de ustedes, en cuanto al tipo de Medicare que ustedes tienen acceso, lo que él me pregunta es, ¿usted quiere quitármelo o quiere añadirle? Yo digo que yo quiero suplementarlo mucho más de lo que tiene usted en este momento. Si hay cualquier limitación que exista en lo que se refiere a servicios médicos, yo quiero eliminar. Y no solamente eso, quiero darle ese servicio a todo el mundo, para que todas las personas tengan acceso.
Question over here.
Hi. What are the main reasons given for opposing the health care bill and why are those people wrong?
So there is, the main thing is that we're trying to fundamentally change the way that we provide healthcare in the state of New York. And that is not a small thing to do. And so we are trying to, you know, when they say that we're talking about something that is very disruptive. And it is on purpose. It is very disruptive. We have been built over the last 40, 50, 60 years. In our mind, it exists that there's a connection between good healthcare and good insurance. That's how everybody thinks, right? That is what we connect when we talk about how we get good healthcare, we get good insurance. And we just think about everything in terms of how we get that good insurance product. That is a very hard habit to break. Top of that there is so there's a question about, because you're talking about people that are critics, so like, there's a question of can it be done? Can it work differently? And that's a big if. My response to that would be, of course it can be done, because it is being done already in basically every modern country across the world, for a different version of it. There's different, in the case of the UK, the doctors work for the state, work for the United Kingdom. That would not be the system that we're talking about. In the case of Canada, there is a different, your healthcare is covered, but your drugs are covered with private insurance. So there's different, amalgam of systems. I want to basically create a system that will be a model for the rest of the country. And that is very threatening to the folks who are making enormous amounts of money from the way the current system works. Y ya preguntó, ¿qué es lo que dicen los críticos en contra de este plan, legislativo y por qué no están en lo correcto? Y yo digo que lo más importante de entender es que como estamos tratando de hacer algo que en este país nunca se ha hecho, queremos hacer algo que queremos básicamente cambiar algo fundamental que nosotros tenemos en la mente, que es que nosotros tenemos la conexión de que para conseguir buen trato de médico tenemos que tener un buen del seguro, que todo es sobre seguro. Y si tenemos un buen seguro, entonces tenemos un buen tratado médico. Pero eso no es correcto. O sea, y todo el mundo que tiene seguro se lo puede decir, ¿verdad? Y eso pero está tan fundamental en la cabeza que es difícil de romper eso. Además, para ser honestos, hay gente que está haciendo millones de dólares todos los días en continuar el sistema como tenemos. O sea que esas son algunas de las cosas básicas que se critican. I mean, the bottom line is that there is a concern about this being done by the state. There's a concern that that the state will not be able to manage it, and that it hasn't been done before. And so, at least in the United States, and so there's a real resistance to it, which I'm trying to break.
I have a question over here, and then we'll get to that question. Okay, everyone. What is the long-term care ombudsman program?
The long-term ombudsman program is something that we need to actually do a little bit of a refit, but it is meant to be a representative. Ombudsman starts representative, so a representative of long-term care, folks who are receiving long-term care, as somebody who can speak on their behalf, who can watch out for the conditions in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, places where people receive long-term care are. So it is a program that's meant to actually be a representative of those folks who receive long-term care, to basically make sure that their voices are being heard if they're not being heard. But there are some. My colleague who was talking about earlier, Rachel May. She actually wants to do kind of she wants to give them more money, and she wants to give them more power to make it a more effective program. And we're potentially working on that during this budget. The long-term care ombudsman, el ombudsman, yo no sé cómo diablos se dice en español, pero sí, es un representante de las personas que reciben trato de long-term care o personas que están en nursing homes o en sitios de assisted living lo que se hace, esta persona. Es un programa que mi colega que hablé ahorita, que es la persona que tiene la propuesta legislativa sobre Fair Pay for Home Care, la misma persona que se llama Rachel May, ella apoya este programa, quiere darle más dinero y quiere ponerle más poder para que tenga más autoridad para defender los derechos de las personas que reciben servicio y que puede ser que no estén recibiendo servicio adecuadamente.
Diane has a question statement.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
What?
Okay, this isn't a question, this is a statement.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a dear friend and she has passed away, but she was from Massachusetts. And I wish to call to your attention that Massachusetts under Mitt Romney had a form of Medicare for all. Listen, let me finish, okay? She had two major operations, and I believe, and I wish she was still alive today, and I believe that she paid about $150 out of pocket. That is what she told me. So I wish she was alive today to come here and say this, all right? So that was the issue. And then I have another point.
If I may, if I may address that for a second.
Yes,
What was established in Massachusetts was not a Medicare for all system. Basically, what ultimately became Obamacare was modeled after what happened in Massachusetts. And what Massachusetts did was they created a marketplace for insurance companies, and they set up a standard so that every insurance company had at least to offer certain services, which before they weren't obligated to. Remember when we're talking about Obamacare, and it said, like, you know, every program had to have, like, if you were a kid at 26 in your parents' you could still be on the program. It had to have certain services available as part of that particular, you know, of that particular plan. So what it did was it set some standards, but at the core of it was still private insurance companies, which was problematic. Because ultimately what I want to do is I don't want to do that. I do not want to create a system in which insurance companies are still at the center of the healthcare system. I want to eliminate them. I want to excise them from the process. And my condolences for your friend.
but I did have one more.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and this is regarding, the gun violence.
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
country. I have something to add, and that is, in terms of as a possible solution or something, you know, to counteract what's just being noted. How about bullets, and suing the manufacturers who make the bullets, not the guns?
We are in, that is actually something that we are very seriously looking at in the state of New York related to liability. There are a couple of bills related to basically creating a liability for manufacturers of weapons, and certainly it could, the discussion that this remind me to talk to Myra about, because I'm not sure if the bill that's currently around includes manufacturers of bullets, right? Thank you, of ammunition. But I would certainly want to look into it, because the reality is, if you get a toaster and you burn yourself in the toaster, in ways that are outside of the normal, safety precautions that you should follow with a toaster, like you're just, and you can actually sue the manufacturing company that dang toaster. So it should follow that there should be some level of liability for weapon manufacturers, but they've been very, very effective, particularly at the national level, at being able to stay out of that conversation. But in the state of New York, I believe that there are ways that we're looking to actually do that and create some liability for that. La señorita me preguntó particularmente sobre lo segundo tiene que ver con una ley que pasó con lo que ella cree que se tiene que hacer para bregar con la violencia que está pasando con armas, y es para poder crear una categoría de responsabilidad legal para aquellas personas que manufacturan las balas. Y yo le estaba diciendo que hay una propuesta legislativa que tiene que ver con crear una responsabilidad legal para aquellas personas que manufacturan las armas, y que de la misma forma que uno puede, si uno tiene un accidente con alguna cosa que uno compra para su casa, una cortadora, por ejemplo, puede entonces demandar a la persona que hizo la cortadora. Y pues debe haber algo parecido en lo que se refiere a las armas de fuego. Y pues estamos en ese proceso. Lo otro que ella dijo sobre Massachusetts es que yo aclaré que en Massachusetts no se creó un sistema de Medicare para todo el mundo. Lo que se hizo fue que se hizo un programa, un sistema en el cual las compañías de salud, las compañías de seguro, tenían un mercado en el cual tenían que competir, pero tenían que tener unos estándares que anteriormente no lo tenían que tener. Y eso fue básicamente lo que se hizo para Obamacare. Que aunque lo apoyo, no fue bastante lejos para mí.
Okay, so we want to be very sensitive to the senator's time. I'm going to take one more question here. I want to open it up for the people online so
Yes.
they don't feel like.
Hello,
Chance.
people online.
Hello, people online. And then we also want to give everyone in the center a chance to have a little one-on-one time with Senator over some refreshments. Young lady, ask the question, loud and into the mic.
Yes, ma'am. Senator,
Yes, ma'am.
first I must say how totally delighted I am that you are at the helm of our health community. Really. You are a blessing and a pleasure.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to highlight for you, if I may, sir,
Please.
a piece of legislation that I believe is in your bucket
Okay.
that's enormously important to all of us here, and that is an extra $4 million budgeted for the New York State Commission for the Blind. I don't know if you're aware that Bronx County has actually the second highest percentage of people over 65 who are blind and visually impaired.
I did not know that.
Number two, that's why I'm highlighting it.
Yeah.
And what this would allow the commission to do would be to give reimbursement, appropriate reimbursement to vision rehabilitation agencies to allow them to serve more seniors who are blind and partially sighted. It's an enormously necessary amount, and it's such a tiny, minuscule amount.
Mhm.
I pray, I hope, I urge that you will include it in the budget come April. Thank you.
Okay. Man, I don't know what your gig is, you should be allowed. That's pretty good. It was actually pretty good.
Specific
I have to confess, sir.
There it is. There it is.
Now, I will tell you that I am on the board of Visions
Yes.
Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I worked for 15 years at the Lighthouse.
Mhm.
I retired as Deputy Commissioner of the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs. And yes, indeed, I did a lot of lobbying in Albany.
So that is, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. We're currently in the process of negotiating the budget, and that, I believe it might not be in my bucket, only because it might be in what is known as aid to localities. But we will track it down.
Thank you so
We'll track
much.
it down.
I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, we are going to open up. If there are any questions from anyone online, you can unmute yourself. Barbara, can you moderate that for us?
And our Brenda's waiting to be admitted.
Oh, we better let her in. Go ahead.
I don't know how to get in.
Okay.
Renee?
Barbara, is there any question?
Oh,
Yes, I have
okay,
a question.
Well, I think,
Renee has a question. Renee has a question.
I have a
I have a
question.
question too.
Go ahead.
Okay, hello, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. My question has to do with SNAP. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. So my COVID extra SNAP benefits are going to be taken away after this month, and it actually is a substantial amount of reduction. It's going to make a difficult time for me to afford my food. So two questions. Is there anything that you are trying to do in New York City or New York State to replace those extra SNAP benefits? Or how can I get some help with that?
First of all, ma'am, do you live in my district?
Well, I live in the north of Riverdale.
Yeah, you're in my district.
Yeah.
So do me a favor, pop in there and put the wherever computer and pop in the number, please. So one of my staffers is gonna pop into the computer so that on the chat, they're gonna put my office number, which I put not only for you, but for everyone. And we'll
Okay,
make sure that you have it as well. Because I'd want to actually dig a little bit deeper into your situation to see if there's ways that we because there is some of that unfortunately has to do with federal funds that are running out.
I understand.
There are conversations, but we're currently in the budget having conversations about how we could supplement the different, how we can supplement some of the different programs that are kind of being phased out at the federal level. We obviously can't match them dollar for dollar in the state level, but we can do some stuff in some of these programs. So we're looking at different things. I'd have to talk on this one in particular. That is not on my table. And I should tell you, just so that you know a little bit about how the process works. The budget is not one bill. There's like 11 different bills. So it's a lot of different votes that we have to take. And after the governor does her state of the state and then does her, so she says, this is what I'm going to do this year. And then 2 weeks later comes back and says, this is what I'm going to pay for it. So that's the budget. Then we have a series of hearings. So that is about a month. And we're in the middle of those right now. But then in the middle, but also at the same time, we in the conference, in the Senate and the Assembly, break down the budget into chunks, if you will. And then, for example, I'm the chair of the working group on health, which has health, mental health, aging, developmental disabilities, insurance, local government, and women's issues. So the chair people of those committees, then we go through the budget like piece by piece by piece, and it's a long document in health. And then we make a determination about whether we're going to support the governor or not support the governor. That's all to say. Who am I speaking to, by the way?
Well, Tenzin, it's Tenzin.
Tenjin. So Tenjin. So that's to say, Tenjin, that this in particular is probably not in my table, and it probably falls under human services. As far as the supplementing that we're potentially going to do in this budget cycle, but I will definitely track it down generally for you as far as the budget, and then specifically to your question, Jeff, you got it, dude?
Yeah, we would put it in.
Right.
So, number, you see the number in the chat there?
Yeah, I've got it. I'll call for sure. Thank you very much.
Make sure to call. So para la persona que va a sobre beneficios beneficios de SNAP que ya va a perder empezando el mes que viene. Está explicando que parte de eso tiene que ver con el hecho de que hay dinero federal que no vamos a tener más. Le está explicando que en el proceso del presupuesto que estamos haciendo ahora, estamos considerando cómo podemos suplementar algunas de estas cosas que estamos perdiendo a nivel federal, pero obviamente no lo podemos hacer de dólar a dólar con dólares estatales que no son federales. Pero que estamos en el proceso, pero también le incluí a ella el número telefónico de mi oficina para que se pueda comunicar, porque vamos a ver qué podemos hacer con su caso en particular.
Okay, we have time for one more question. And so if your question was not answered, you can send the question to us. We'll send it to.
And by the way, folks, this is not the last time. This is not the last time you will see me. I just want to make sure that's clear. It's not, you know. It's not like I'm in a hurry.
Can I ask a question? It's Renee.
Okay, then this is our last question, Renee. Make it a good one. No pressure.
Go ahead, Renee.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Very lovely to hear you and so on. I'm in a position where I need some care, and I may not have care in the home going forward. And I'm wondering if the state, New York State, has any licensing on continuing care communities, whether they're licensed or certified in any way whatsoever.
I would say, Renee, that much like I told Tanjin before you, the number that you have on the chat there, that you should reach out to us so that we can actually do a deep dive on what your question is and how best we can potentially connect you to services that you might have available to you. Is that okay?
I don't know how to do that.
Oh, yes, you can call the number. If you look at, you know how to do the chat? Okay, you know what? I'm just going to give you a number. You have something to write down?
Okay.
718 933 2034. Repito.
I don't need to repeat. Oh, yeah.
718-933-2034. You got that, Renee?
I got it.
Good. Then call it, and you can speak to anybody. You can speak to this. Say hi, no, go ahead. No, go ahead. You can speak to Brent, but he's obviously not there right now. But you can speak to anybody else. Sorry, Francisco. I have a full team of great people, and we're accessible to you. So please give us a call.
Thank you very much.
All right, Renee.
Okay, Senator, muchísimas gracias.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Representative, with the audience. Thank you, Representative. this event this afternoon, again, it won't be the last time you're
No,
here. But this event was organized by our Social Action Committee. We're always looking for other older adults in the community to join our Social Action Committee. So you can talk to Margie, you can talk to Selena, also known as Fufu's mother, and you can find it online. And then here comes Selena and Fufu. So please don't go. The senator has a few more minutes, plus there's merienda snacks over there. Help yourself to some refreshments. Creo que hay café.
And you can get your picture taken with.
So I will also be carrying out my business card for anyone who wants to also reach out to.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.